if it's going to flood and the roof is going to fly off, or it's going to get burned down in a wildfire because it doesn't have good vegetation management and it's going to have expensive landscaping, just because you love the kitchen or the man cave in the basement, not a reason to buy it unless you are absolutely sure that you've got all the Mother Nature risks covered.
Hi, I am Izumi Tanaka. I am the host of this podcast, Home Green Homes. As someone who connects regularly with industry leaders who are pushing the boundaries of green and sustainable home building, I've noticed the recent shift in the conversations. It's no longer just about sustainability. Resilience is becoming just as central. How do we build not just for the planet and our human body, but also for survival against an increasingly unpredictable incidence of natural hazards? That question led me to today's guest, Albert Slapp. He is a founder and president of RiskFootprint.com. He was an environmental attorney before he pivoted to this technology. Let's hear from you, Albert. What was the pivoting point for your career change?
Well, thank you, Izumi, and I'm very glad to be on your show. You're focusing, and your listeners and viewers are focusing on what's going on with Mother Nature, and how is Mother Nature affecting a home that I own or a home that I want to buy. And so I've been doing this for about 10 years. I was an environmental lawyer for many years. I taught environmental law in law schools. And so I was very concerned about pollution and Mother Nature and what Mother Nature could do to the built environment. And so when I retired from the practice of law, I hooked up with some scientists down here in South Florida, including a Nobel Prize winner. And we had the idea that we could create a tool for property owners and people who wanted to buy property. We called it RiskFootprint. It's on RiskFootprint.com. And we do work for both commercial properties and residential. It's all about making decisions. It's all about due diligence. And when I was in law school, everyone had to take property law. That was in the first year of law school. And we learned a Latin phrase, caveat emptor. And I'm sure, Izumi, in your career, you've heard that many, many times, as maybe some of your viewers have heard of the Latin phrase caveat emptor. And what it means is let the buyer beware. But how do you beware? And, when do you start that? What do you do to beware? Maybe you're looking for a green home, or maybe you want to make your home green. And you've used the word in your podcast of sustainability, and that's a great word. I've coined another word, sustainer-resilience, because I believe then 10 years ago, and I believe now even more, that these two concepts are not different. They're not different tracks. There's not a sustainability track or greenness track and a resilience track. They're really the same track. We're two sides of the same coin, really. So my mission is to help people make decisions that will make their property safer and more sustainable and resilient. So I have a product called the Risk Footprint tool or report, but that's not my mission. My mission is not just a 25-page report that you can buy online. No, it's helping with the decisions. They're important decisions because they affect, am I going to buy this or am I not? What price should I pay? If there's insurance, how much is that going to cost and why? And if I'm having a mortgage, what does the lender think about my property? It could be for my own use. It could be an investment. Many people buy single-family homes today for investment and they rent them out. It could be a small commercial property as well. But the banks and the insurance companies are very important But I want to say this, Izumi, they shouldn't be driving the train. Your listeners, the people who are going to buy a property or fix up a property, should be driving the train, and they should be in control. And they should be the ones that use my information and other information to make better, caveat emptor, the buyer beware, let them make better decisions. I think that this is very important. And I want to tell you, it just comes up time and time and time again. So I want to start with this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
People say, I'll buy this house. It's not in a FEMA flood zone, as if somehow the FEMA flood zone map was in the Bible, and it was a holy grail of safety. And I know you've heard this. In Hurricane Harvey in Houston, 120,000 homes were flooded because of the rainfall outside of the FEMA flood zone. So all those people went, oh my, how could my property have flooded? I'm outside the FEMA flood zone. And by the way, my insurance company, my insurance agent, and my bank said, oh, lucky you, you don't have to have flood insurance because you're outside the FEMA flood zone. But if you were inside the FEMA flood zone, you'd have to have flood insurance. And they're going like, oh, wow, now I can take a vacation or I can do something else with that money. But they didn't realize that FEMA flood maps don't include heavy rainfall. And what I say to people is, people say, I'm not in a FEMA flood zone. Or they say, my house is X feet above the FEMA flood level. And I go, let me ask you a question. Does it rain where you live? Oh, of course it rains where I live. I said, where it rains, it can flood. And you need to get information like in my report and other reports that show outside the FEMA flood map where flooding can occur. And flooding is just one thing. There's wind, of course. And I want to tell you a little story about my townhouse, okay?
Yes.
In Boca Raton, Florida. So this year I just renewed my homeowner's insurance, and it was about $6,000 a year. Okay. It breaks down like this. $1,000 of the $6,000 is for everything except hurricanes.
Wow.
And $5,000 of every year, $5,000 is just for hurricane wind.
Wow.
Just for hurricane wind. And there's no flood, and I have flood insurance through the federal NFIP, even though I'm not in a flood zone. NFIP flood insurance, Izumi, there's certain rights. It should be in the Constitution of the United States. It's a right. Every one of your listeners, everyone, can have NFIP flood insurance, whether they're in a FEMA flood zone or not. I'm not, but I have it. It costs me $700 a year. It's nothing. And then, so if my house burnt down, the risk of that is like $1,000 a year of an insurance premium. But the hurricane winds are $5,000, and you're in California, so the same thing with wildfires and how people are having to go to the state insurance fund for the wildfires. So what I'm trying to say to you is that we want your listeners and we want the home buyers and the homeowners to have all the information that they can get easily that will help them make better decisions. And the one thing, and I'm not here to do a hard sell or to advertise, but they can buy a report for their home for $200 on RiskFootprint.com, and they can talk to me or one of our risk advisors. They can actually talk to a human being, not AI. They can talk to a human being about their situation. Now, some people come to us. This one guy, he says, because of my job, I have to live in South Tampa. But South Tampa is a very, very risky place in terms of flooding, hurricane winds, storm surge. And he and his wife and family wanted a nice new home. And he said, this is what I want you to do. This is how I want you to help me. My wife wants to live on the coast. I'm scared about living on the coast. My wife and I are going to pick out with a realtor 5 properties, and I want you to rank them in according to their risks of all sorts of different hazards, Mother Nature, butt kicking, and then let us make the decision. And he and his wife ended up in the center of South Tampa. South Tampa is like a little peninsula that sticks out into the Gulf. And it was on a golf course, a home on a golf course at one of the highest parts of South Tampa. And 2022, he got through Hurricane Ian and he got through Helene and Milton back in 2024. And he can't say enough, gratitude, thank you, appreciate you, because we helped him find the right home. Now, what about your people, your listeners and viewers who already own a home? And they're listening to you, Home Green Homes, because maybe they want solar on their roof. Maybe they want better windows so it won't leak. It won't leak the air conditioning or the heat or whatever. And they want to be energy efficient. They don't want to spend so much money on energy. The fastest way to cut your energy bill down to zero is don't protect your house from the next flood, because then it's done.
Yeah, right.
So that is where sustainability, how to reduce your energy, and resilience connect. You can't have one without the other. And people say, I have a solar panels on my roof, and I have a exchange with the utility, and my bills have been cut down. But then the roof flies off because they did not tie the roof down to the walls properly. I'll tell you a story about what I did with my house. We moved here 9 years ago, and we started out with, I told you that it's about $6,000 a year for insurance, but started out at $4,000, and then it went up to $6,500, then it went up to $8,500, then it was going up to $12,500.
Wow.
And I said to my insurance agent, I said, this is terrible. What, because we had a lot of hurricanes. We had, Hurricane Ian in 2022. And he said, this is what his response was, all in capital letters: get a new roof. Well, this is sort of my business. So I knew that just getting new tiles and a new membrane was not going to prevent my roof from flying off in the next hurricane. And as I said, the wind part of my annual homeowners insurance is $5,000 now and $1,000 for everything else. So I said, no, that's ridiculous. So I went and I researched and found a company called Roof to Walls. Roof to Walls. I called them and I said, look, my home was built in 1989, and the codes back then, when were not as good as the codes today. I want you to come out and go in my attic and look and tell me what you can do to make the tie down. Don't tell me about the decorative tiles on my roof, because I've never had a leak. Tell me how you can tie the roof down to the walls so that when the hurricane wind does come, it'll stay. Okay. And they did that. And it cost me like $5,000 instead of $30,000 to take all the old tiles off and put new membrane and new tiles on. And I've been negotiating with the insurance companies and trying to get back down to closer to where we started, which was $4,000 a year instead of $12,500, which would have been ridiculous. And I look at my neighbors, and I live in a sort of like a retirement community on a golf course, and they listen to the insurance agents who say, get a new roof. And they spend $30,000 or $40,000, but nobody ever goes into the attic. So new clips, bigger nails, bracing, strapping. There's many things that have to be done to the older home to make it more resilient and therefore more sustainable for the future. So I tell you these stories because, we work with homeowners, we work with commercial real estate, and we also work with banks who are trying to figure out what does it really mean that
Yes.
the FEMA flood maps are defective. And we've been going on them for 30 plus years. What should we do now, Albert? What should we do now when we're trying to underwrite a loan? So these are all the issues that I'm dealing with every day. And
Yes.
again, I'll stop there and let you get a word in edgewise.
Thank you
I
so much. It's
appreciate it.
indeed such a relevant conversation, and I happen to have George Siegel, who is a filmmaker, and he also is in your area, who made a documentary film, Built to Last, and be aware, buyer be aware, indeed.
I've
And
seen his film. I saw his film.
yes,
Very good. Very
and I
good.
know that you and George both are in South Florida in a similar environment with the hurricane. Walk me through how risk footprint actually does. And I know that you have your anecdotes about the flood and hurricanes, but as you said, I'm in California. We have earthquakes and we have wildfires, and your platform actually evaluates 34 plus different natural hazards.
Yes.
If you can walk me through, say someone in the middle of the country or someone on the West Coast where we have fires or, things like that, just so that we have an idea how it works.
Okay. So
Yes.
one thing that's important for people and your listeners to realize is that we don't make our own models up. We're curating by looking at all the different models that are available from government and from private sources, not many from private sources. And I have a science team, like I said, including a Nobel Prize winner, and we look at every model of all of the 34 different hazards and we determine if they're scientifically legitimate. We won't use something that's not either a government open source. We use FEMA and we tell the reader what its limitations are. We use for wildfire, we use the 2024 U.S. Forest Service urban wildfire interface maps. We use NOAA maps, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, and USGS and others. So with an address, that's really all we need is your address.
I
We
see.
put it into our system, we push a button, and within a minute or two, you get a, a 24-page report that is specific to your home and in its neighborhood. So it can be anywhere. Now, on the West Coast in California, you're now there's a lot of concern about wildfires and earthquakes. But Nashville has earthquake risk, and believe it or not, Charleston, South Carolina has earthquake risk.
Wow.
And down here in South Florida, almost every year during dry periods, we have fires in the Everglades, and
Right.
that not so much close to homes, but we certainly get the smoke. Even where I live, we have days of smoky days. So each community, each property is different, and our reports are property specific. And so, and what we're trying to do is give property owners at their level, anywhere in the United States, Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico, anywhere, the best information that we can get them in a very short amount of time. So fast, accurate, and affordable. And then there's a place that they can call. So they can call us and say, help me understand the report. I mean, it's not, you know, totally, it's not for, children,
Mm-hmm.
but, most adults can understand it,
Mm-hmm.
but they need to discuss it on a number of different levels. So let's just take wildfire in California. You could be in a moderate, not a high risk area, but you've already had houses in your area burned down. So, the whole issue of vegetation,
Mm-hmm.
and have come up since the LA fires of 2025, much better information for the homeowners in these wildfire risk areas in terms of vegetation management. How many feet from the house should you pretty much have very little vegetation, and then 5 to 10 feet? And I I don't have right on the tip of my tongue all the different layers, but that can be discussed. Also, what's your hold time? People have different hold times. Some people are buying a home or living in a home and they plan to live there the rest of their lives. Other people might have a 5 year period and then they're planning on moving somewhere else, or that they're in certain jobs where they are transferred fairly regularly. So before we talk with clients about, well, are you going to do major landscaping? Are you going to get people in the wildfire areas up in your attic and change, put different vent covers on that would not let the embers get in? And then of course there's sprinkler systems, and there's the generators that can keep your electricity going. So all of these decisions are complex in the sense that they deal with where people are in their lives and in their budgets. It's not there's only one answer to all of these greenness, sustainability, and resilience issues.
Mm-hmm.
They're all gamished together, and they also have to fit into your life and
Mm-hmm.
your budget. So we talk to, whether it's residential or commercial, we talk to our clients about where they are in
Mm-hmm.
their lives and in their jobs and in their budgets, to see what's the right thing for them to do at the right time, because it's not
Yeah.
just binary. Well, if there's this, then you must do that. And
Right.
that's
Right.
very rarely the case.
Yeah, it sounds like your platform is aggregating massive amount of data and providing very almost invaluable information for people. So, do you find that mostly your clients or customers are actually home buyers considering, or do you find like realtors reaching out to you? I mean, it sounds like we as realtors definitely should know about it so we can help our clients to discern certain property from another, comparing like your story about your other client. Who are your most like primary customer base so far?
Well, I would say on the residential side, it's the a home buyer
Mm-hmm.
who has found us and wants to sort of step up their due diligence game,
Mm-hmm.
their
Mm-hmm.
caveat emptor. We do have realtors who are, I guess you would call them buyer side realtors,
Mm-hmm.
or more on the buyer side. You don't have to be a buyer side or a seller side anymore. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can be whatever you want to be for the day.
Sure.
But I would say a buyer side realtor really understands the caveat emptor due diligence,
Mm-hmm.
because they're going to get some payment, some
Mm-hmm.
commission when the buyer buys.
Right.
If you're a seller side, you pretty seller side, the seller and the seller side realtor is going like, well, yeah, caveat emptor due diligence is for the buyer. It's emptor. The caveat is beware, and the emptor is Latin for the buyer. So let the buyer. I'm the seller and I'm the seller's realtor. So what am I doing here? I'm not going to necessarily, but in states, there are more and more states are in their game in terms of mandatory disclosure. And Hawaii has certain mandatory real estate disclosures for sea level rise. Florida now has better requirements and disclosure requirements for the seller for flooding. If you've ever had a NFIP claim, you have to disclose that and other things. And I'm sure in California, there's probably more and more disclosure requirements. I
Yes,
know that in
indeed.
Colorado, they have
Mm-hmm.
a radon disclosure requirement. You have to
Mm-hmm.
have a radon
Mm-hmm.
certification.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that's really where this is coming from. And I have to say this, that the buying now and the younger people, younger families that are buying homes, it's happening very quickly.
Yes.
And you put, the due diligence does not really begin legally until you have an agreement of sale or you signed an offer, and then you have a certain number of days to do your
Right.
due diligence
Mm-hmm.
and back out of the deal. My suggestion, very strong suggestion, is start that process yourselves way before you sign an agreement of sale. Now, I realize that we want that one house, and if we
Mm-hmm.
don't sign the agreement of sale and kickstart it, somebody else is going to get it. Having been around a long time and owned many homes in many different areas, a house is a house, and you make it a home. So it's a house,
Mm-hmm.
and even if you love the kitchen, or even if you love the man cave in the basement, if it's going to flood and the roof is going to fly off, or it's going to get burned down in a wildfire because it doesn't have good vegetation management and it's going to have expensive landscaping, just because you love the kitchen or the man cave in the basement
Mm-hmm.
is not a reason to buy it unless you are absolutely sure that you've got all the Mother Nature risks covered.
Mm-hmm.
You've
Mm-hmm.
factored them in, and you're okay with it. I'm not here to say don't buy it if it
Right.
has a flood risk, but because you may be able to get barriers. You can
Mm-hmm.
buy doorway flood barriers on Amazon and have them delivered for a few
I
$100.
didn't know that. I
I
didn't know
mean,
that.
it's not hair no, it's not a hair on fire situation because you
Right.
have risks,
Right.
but you should know it well before you sign the agreement of sale. And that's why I told the story of the gentleman from South Tampa, and we
Mm-hmm.
looked at 5 homes that he and his wife would purchase. They would purchase them, but they wanted to know which was the one with the least risk.
Right. Now it's so interesting because in there is definitely a movement about requiring energy score for home sale transactions. There's some spots in the country that's kind of emerging. And as George Siegel said in his interview with me, he thinks that the resiliency factor, the climate risk factor should be just as important to be disclosed with all the transactions. Do you see that's coming, like as some kind of a local level or national level requirement for transactions of properties?
Well, certainly not at a national level. I mean, the current administration is taking everything having to do with the climate apart,
Unfortunately,
including
yes.
that just today I read they're
Mm-hmm.
pulling out these deep ocean sensors that are measuring the flow of the Gulf Stream and the temperature of the
Mm-hmm.
oceans, which
Mm-hmm.
is just disgraceful. But so I don't think anything's happening on the national level. But I do want to say, think climate. There's I keep saying Mother Nature, and hazards, because extreme weather is not climate. An earthquake is not climate.
That's true.
Climate means the trends that are occurring and have been occurring over a long period of time. I mean, 10,000 years ago, a lot of North America was under sheets of ice. So when we look at climate trends, we talk about climate.
That's true.
Most deals, most real estate deals, whether they be commercial, industrial, healthcare, or whether it's a person's home, is made on the here and now, not on what's going to happen in 2050 or 2100. It's the
Exactly.
here and now risks.
Right.
So what we do have climate trend information in the risk footprint report. We do. We have future sea level rise. We have future trends in heat and rainfall and drought and wildfire. We do have those. But we have those there because in the commercial area mostly, some of the bigger customers, when they deal with portfolios of properties, want to see this trend. But we get back to the hold time. When you, Izumi, when you have clients and you go like, well, you talk to them and you say, well, how long do you think you'll be here?
Right.
And they say, well, I think no more than 5 years. Well, climate really doesn't change too much in 5 years, or maybe even 10 years.
Mm.
So that's not going to be, and the other thing is, are they going to leave this property to their children or their grandchildren?
Right.
Probably not. So when people talk about we want to move to areas where it's a more favorable climate trend into the future, I kind of scratch my head about that because they're not going to be around in that house or maybe even alive when the climate in that area is more favorable than the climate in Miami Beach or Los Angeles or New Orleans. I think it's a decisions more about what is going to affect me this year, what's going to affect me next year, what's going to affect me in the next 5 years. Because if I'm going to make improvements, to my home, the payback or the return on investment is not going to be a 30-year return on investment because people aren't really making decisions based on 30 years.
That's true. I guess I should have said natural hazard, maybe, rather than climate risk.
Izumi, I was on a Zoom call earlier today.
Yes.
And people are just, misusing the word climate when they really want to talk about natural hazards, extreme weather, and floods. That really is it. Natural hazard, extreme weather, and floods. It's not all climate.
That's true.
If you talk to scientists who are experts, they're going to tell you weather is weather and climate is the long-term trend that the weather is expressing itself.
Yes, thank you, Albert. That's so true. And I really appreciate your work and how you are providing this invaluable information. And I would love to spread the word for amongst my other real estate colleagues, as well as homeowners, home buyers who might be considering of purchasing a property, or even as an owner of an existing property. I think it's a great information to have, whether you're going to keep it or you're going to sell it. I think it'll become increasingly important piece of information that we're going to be using while we are transacting properties. Well, thank you so much, Albert. I really appreciate your time. And obviously, we have to let people know how to find you. It's RiskFootprint.com, correct?
Yes, RiskFootprint.com, and that has customer service and all sorts of information. It also has both a residential and a commercial example of a report. So they can actually go on there. They don't have to just buy it sight unseen.
Right.
They can download it
Mm-hmm.
look at it, study it, determine if it's the right thing for them
Mm-hmm.
before they make a decision.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Albert, again. And I really appreciate you. And thank you, everyone, for your attention today. And until my next episode, this was Izumi Tanaka with Home Green Homes. Thank you for listening to Home Green Homes. If you found this episode useful, please subscribe and leave a review or share it with someone who cares about better homes and better future. Here's to creating homes that are healthier, more resilient, and truly future ready.